How's it going, everybody? JT here on behalf of the EV Mavericks Discord and the Ethereum Daily General Discussion on the subreddit r Ethereum, celebrating this 125th episode of Doots Live this September 19, 2025 with my good friend ETH Wave from Growthepie. How's it going, my friend?
Yeah, it's going good. I'll just give it a little quick introduction of who I am because for the guys who don't know me yet. So I'm ETH Wave, the intern for Growthepie. I've been working there for just over a year now. In terms of like technical knowledge, I'm probably like medium level within the company, so I know quite a bit. But we've got like researchers who know quite a lot more than me. But I handle all the socials and like part time on front end as well. And excited to like talk you through our site.
Well, we're really glad that you had some time today to sit down with us, because if there's one thing I love seeing on Reddit is when you show up and drop some stats in off the Growthepie website. If you haven't checked out growthepie.com, they don't sponsor this podcast in any way. We're just huge fans of what these people are putting together because they show all the different metrics from all the different L2s and beyond with the Ethereum ecosystem. It's just incredible. And I feel like Growthepie is one of the most laser focused companies out there when it comes to data and metrics, analytics, and everything blockchain with the Ethereum ecosystem. If you haven't checked it out, it's right there. Easy to find. Just go to growthepie.com. If you want to open up growthepie.com as we talk to ETH Wave, this is a great thing to do. So when I come to this site, I'm often, like there's so many things to look at. And I know that ETH Wave, you guys have so many features that people maybe haven't seen since they've come in the last 6 months. What would you like to walk us through? Where should we start if we're going to join this website?
Yeah, I'll probably actually kick you off with our landing page, and then I'll get more into the nitty-gritty once we sort of cover some of the more basics. So if you scroll down just a little bit to our first big chart,
okay,
which is the Ethereum weekly engagement. This chart basically shows how many addresses have been active within the Ethereum ecosystem, so we don't double count if they've been active on multiple layer 2s. And if you just scroll up just a tiny little bit, I want to show you how we break this down. So composition split, which is the third option across.
Okay.
Yeah, we just click that one there. So right now we can see Ethereum's in this sort of darkish grey, bluish color at the bottom.
At the bottom, okay.
And that's Ethereum mainnet. And we can see like over time, layer 2s and activity on multiple layer 2s as well as cross-chain activity has been growing. And Ethereum mainnet has been declining in terms of percentage. But recently we've, thanks to like Petra and a few other sort of gas target upgrades, we've seen like a resurgence in Ethereum mainnet.
Yeah, it's a bounce.
And you can see just it's bounced from like a low of roughly 10% to about 20% now. That's including like cross layer. So we count in a separate group if it's been active on Ethereum mainnet and one or more layer 2. And then if you switch back to the first tab at the top there, yeah. So this is just showing like the overall stacked view, the colorful sort of blue, red and yellow, that's all the layer 2s there. And this is very much largely dominated by base. So you can see it's like kind of dropped off recently. And looking at that, you might think, this is kind of bearish. And I just want to explain the story behind this. So if you scroll right up to the top of the page, and I want you to search for throughput.
Like right here at the search bar? Okay.
Yeah, just search throughput.
Okay.
And click on that.
Nice.
We're just going to look at, so base is the one that's at the top there, and we can see it's dropped off significantly. So in the chart on the right hand side, you can see that it's dropped there. And the reason why that is because on base, they originally had, similar to Ethereum, they had a target gas that was halfway between their maximum. So and they recently changed that to be 1/3, so 3 times less density rather than 2 times. So Ethereum mainnet has got like a target gas, and then its maximum gas is double that. What Base has done recently is they've changed that to 1/3, and that actually meant that a lot of their bot activity reduced, and that is what's affected that active addresses chart on the landing page.
Huh.
Now, don't worry, I'm not going to talk super nerdy like that the whole time.
No, that's helpful.
Bounce around stuff, but it's just like tells the story behind some of the data.
Interesting. Yeah, it's like just a massive cliff. Huh.
Hmm.
I wanted to go back and see if I hit the back button, hopefully it'll load up this original chart that we had. What was it called? Let's see. Let me go back.
Yeah, let's go back to the home landing page.
Landing page.
So Growthepie. And yeah, just click Growthepie, so slightly above.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just click that.
Okay.
Perfect.
And yeah, okay. So this chart here, yes, there was this drop off, and we do know that this was the base drop off with the bots and all that. But if you look going back, even like look at just going back 2 years, right? It's up and to the right. Yeah, you're gonna have spikes and you're gonna have drops. Does this at all look bearish when, you know, like it's like 12 million, but look at how long. Look, sorry, say that again.
I think people quite often in crypto look on very short time horizons and forget to zoom out on charts like these. You're right, the trend is absolutely up and to the right, but lately there has been that slight dip, and that's just because of the way Base is handling their gas target. So Base like accounts for roughly 50% of active addresses within the Ethereum ecosystem that we track. So they're a big player. If they make a change, it's going to reflect in this chart.
Very good. We got ETH Wave here from Growthepie. If you guys have any questions and you want to raise your hand and jump up on stage at the EV Mavericks Discord, you could do that. And we are streaming live on 2 channels on X, 1 channel on Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So if you see those channels out there, give us a thumbs up. That would be great. And if you want to check out our podcast website, dailydoots.com/podcast. All right, so this is incredible stuff. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's really easy to see things in one page. It's such a good like one pager site. You know what I mean for everything that you can get. This transaction count. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, base chain. I've never even heard of Gravity before, right? So I'm looking at this Gravity layer 2.
Yeah. It's one of the many chains that we track. They do quite a lot of bridging and a bit of DeFi activity there, I think. I haven't used Gravity in a little bit myself, so still getting up. It's hard to keep like track of all the different layer 2s because there's a lot of them, but each are like carving out their little niche. You see like Cello is near the top there. That's a recent addition to Growthepie. They were originally a layer 1 that then pivoted to become a layer 2. And by doing so, they've saved an absolute fortune. They were spending about 6.9 million to their validators, and now they've moved to become an Ethereum layer 2. They're spending like tens of thousands rather than millions. And there might be an argument that we want them to pay more, and I think that's something that's like an evolving discussion, but I think it does make sense for us at the moment to focus on growth and attracting chains to become part of the layer 2 ecosystem. So yeah, Cello is a great addition to the pie, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the debate there is whether if we charge them more, it would materially change the like PE or the fundamentals of the chain. Okay, we make them pay 300% more, and it's irrelevant on a $555 billion asset, right? Like it just doesn't move the needle. So saying, well, we'll just make them pay basically an irrelevant amount, and yeah, they're maybe exploiting the chain or getting a cheap ride, but the focus then is on growth. You know, that's not an uncommon thing for tech plays. How many years did somebody like Twitter go before it made any profit, right? Like it's basically having a loss leader in order to encourage growth is not a bad thing. And, you know, hopefully that growth comes in the form of like making ETH the Wall Street chainer. the institutional adoption wave that we see going, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
We have a growth story. So making sure that the dollar cost on the bottom line is not something that is prohibitive, that would drive, I don't know, the NASDAQ onto Hyperledger Besu or something, right? I think that's an important. A short-term loss of revenue is important for long-term growth at this moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, for example, with Celo, they're a payments chain. So if we're tracking like stable coin transactions, they're one of the top chains in that category. And that's something that is so small now compared to the full market potential when you compare to like big payment platforms. And basically, if everything becomes on chain, the metrics that we're looking at the moment, they're small. They're a great start, but they're small. They're growing in the right direction, but they are small. So yeah, if you scroll down there and click on token transfers, so if you stop scrolling now, and just to the right there, yeah. So 76% of their activity in the past 180 days has been token transfers, and most of that is actually stablecoin transfers. So, and they're one of the biggest in that category. So I'm really glad that they've joined us.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So
wish
the alternative
some
for
success.
that would the alternative to that would be something like smart contract interactions. So if you go to Fractal, it might have fewer transfers and more smart contract interactions because it's all LPs and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were to go to top right, if you want to, top right of the page completely and search for Fractal, we can have a quick look at their metrics. I'm not sure if we actually track Fractal's block space because we don't track block space for every chain. So if you scroll down, I'll let you know if we cover it or not. But it'll be down near the bottom. Yeah. It looks like we don't cover Fractals yet, but hopefully we will onboard it. But yeah, I think their DeFi activity is higher, and it's if you were to look at the amount of throughput per transaction, it would probably be higher because they're more complex transactions.
Right.
Logri the Bard is our technical interviewer. Logri, what is Fractal for those of you that are tuning in that may not know what this chain does?
So Frax made their own chain.
Okay.
Frax had a bunch of they basically are one of the LST providers, and they did this financial gimmick thing where they kind of split off the asset they were going to LP into a non-yield bearing one, and then so you got staking yield. And how is that represented? So they have the LST is a staked version of Frax ETH, and then the thing they're going to LP is a different version, a different token just called FRX ETH. And basically that means that the people that are LPing aren't also making staking yield. And so they can jack up the liquidity farming rates and basically show bigger numbers, even if it's essentially the same as our ETH if you were to include the ETH native yield, right? And that got them a bunch of liquidity. So people came in and they gave Frax the ETH. Frax would then stake it, create FRX ETH. And they said, well, what can we do with all this ETH? And so they made their own L2 and put the Frax ecosystem on that L2, basically as a way of, if you want to transact on the Frax chain, you're going to use Frax ETH. So it creates more native demand for Frax ETH, which means that they're basically increasing their revenue. It's actually kind of like a precursor to what we see happening with like Hyperledger at the moment. Hyperliquid, where Hyperliquid's like, well, how do we pay for things, right? How do we pay the validators? How do we pay the infrastructure? Well, we're giving all these assets on our token a free ride. So how do we monetize at the bridge layer so that the tokens that are on our chain are what we're making money from, right? And they're doing like Hyperliquid's doing that with the stablecoin. You're saying, oh, we're going to create a new, USDH or HUSD, something like that. It says like, this is the Hyperliquid native stablecoin, and we're going to basically white label something like USDC or another, and you're going to give us the money from the treasuries underneath it, because we're the ones creating all the demand for your stablecoin. You see, so they have the asset basically on the bridge is paying for all the infrastructure rather than having higher transaction costs or issuance in some native token or something like that, right? So it's moved the cost off of the user and taken the profit out of the hands of the people who they are generating demand for. So Frax ETH is kind of a precursor to that, in that they wanted to make money off of the FRX ETH and increase its latent demand. So they created an L2 to do that. Now you pay for gas on their chain with FRX ETH. All the FRX ETH that's bridged over there, they're making staking yield on, and you're forfeiting that as part of holding it on their chain, right? So they are old school financial wizards in the DeFi space at this point, right? They've been doing clever tricks like this for 4 years at least, right? They're one of the earliest competitors in the curve wars, so they've got a bunch of CRV and CVX that they are using to create yields on Frax. They've got Frax bonds at this point. When we went through the sort of pendle phase, right? We all became sort of more used to zero coupon bonds. They created Frax bonds. They could, as an alternative to locking capital for 4 years, you basically create a bond and it's locked, but now it's in a different form. It's not vote escrowed or whatever you'd call it, or it's just they give you the equivalent of like the PT position back without the YT existing, right? And then they throw yield on that. So that there's just a bunch of financial things they put under one umbrella, and in order to increase the demand for FRX ETH, they put most of that activity on the Fraxtal chain.
Okay.
You asked for it, but there's a lot to summarize.
There's a lot there. I didn't. Yeah, I understood about half of that. It sounds like a very complex protocol.
So Frax used to be backed by USDC as a reserve model, and they'd had a kind of central banking thing where they'd adjust rates by basically emissions, how much CRV emissions they were giving on their various pools. But nowadays, I think it's actually backed by Biddle. So they're partners with BlackRock.
Oh.
And what's underneath Frax is actually these treasury instruments. So, good to them. They're really helping with the institutional adoption. And as I said, they've done a lot of things over the 4 years. So it's a lot to summarize because it's a collection of products. They're not trying to go to market with like, oh, we're just a liquidity farming solution, right? They're basically trying to become a brokerage from the DeFi side.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
ETH Wave, go
There's
ahead.
other chains that do similar. So Swell natively stake your ETH that's on their chain. You don't need to click on their chain because the page that you're on is actually pretty good to talk about next.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a few chains that do that sort of natively staking and generating yield from the assets that have been bridged there or been minted there.
It's becoming more overt. Like, it wasn't very well communicated in the day where Fraxtal and Swell did it. I think they have the idea, but it's much more overt in the case of Hyperliquid and the USDH, which is why I bring it up as a more recent example.
So if you just scroll down on this page, just click that box there, you can see that our application revenue there, and we actually include stablecoin revenue in here. And we weight that per chain. We have an individual metric for this one too, so you can view it per chain, so like base, for example, but this page aggregates into just the layer 1 and layer 2s. And you can see that Ethereum mainnet is just dominating this metric, and that's not a surprise when you look at the chart next to it, because the amount of stable coins that are on Ethereum mainnet is just through the roof.
It's been a good year for that, yeah. For sure.
162 billion.
So if you look at where it really cliffs up, that's basically the Genius Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you scroll back in time to where it really hits that knee? That's not it. Keep going to the left. Earlier in the year. Right. Like, that is the run up to the stable. No, I'm not sure how to direct you right about 3 months, but we need to go into 2024. Okay, end of 2024. There we go. So right around there that's the election, and the run up of the stable coins from there was basically the Genius Act.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So
it's it was just such an immediate spike. It's just,
these are political events that have basically removed the fear of bringing coins on chain to a large number of well-capitalized entities, and that we're printing like 1 billion Tether a day. I swear to God, it's huge.
Yeah,
well,
it's not uncommon for that number to increase by a billion or two per day. Like, it is really just going through the roof.
So early November.
That's just Tether. That's not even Biddle. That's not all the real world asset, treasury type stuff. That's just the raw stablecoin.
Yeah, we recently added to this metric a few of the smaller stablecoins that are not USD, like some of the Euro ones and some of the smaller denominations.
Even
Interesting.
EURC is way up in market cap this year by percentage. I mean, in absolute
By
terms, yeah, it's
percentage,
tiny, but by percentage, it's way up.
Yeah. Interesting that you mentioned Fraxel, not Fraxel, Hyperliquid earlier. We've actually wrote a quick bite on this because they use a lot of USDC on Arbitrum currently. So if you scroll to the top of the page and search Hyperliquid, or just Hyper is probably sufficient, and it's the bottom one, the bottom result, yeah. So this is for all the people that are like concerned or want to monitor how this change on Hyperliquid is going to affect the amount of USDC that is on Arbitrum. This is a great place to monitor that. In the lighter blue turquoise color, that's the USDC that is within the Hyperliquid bridge on Arbitrum 1. And then the darker blue is all the other stable coins. So that includes Tether, USDC that's not in that bridge, and a few other stable coins as well.
Wow.
And it is a big amount, and Arbitrum have benefited by having Hyperliquid there. Ideally, they would have a few more building on top of them and benefit from like being like a bridge layer. And that's a sort of similar model to what Ethereum mainnet wants to do with some of the layer 2s. So yeah, it's interesting to see how this plays out. They are launching their own stablecoin. It'll be interesting to see what incentives they provide to make their users go in that direction. Because USDC has got great onboarding through things like Coinbase, and it's an easy, well-known brand that's trusted, secured by layer 2. So yeah, it'll be interesting to monitor this over time, and yeah, the amount of money that USDC is making off this at the moment is quite significant.
Yep. And where USDC makes money, Circle gets a big chunk of it. Or sorry, Coinbase gets a big chunk of it too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
it's a funny arrangement. How basically, okay, so there's this pile of cash that's coming in from treasuries. And increasingly, people are figuring out ways to fight for, well, we're the ones generating the demand for that, the stable coin, and we demand a share of the revenue from those treasuries, right? And so there's this sort of renegotiation from Tether gets 100% of it to, well, actually, we'd like 95% of that if you want us to generate the demand rather than for USDT, rather than for USDC, or rather than for GHO or whatever, right? So or Pi USD or whatever, right? So the function of the stablecoin is fungible enough, right, that you can basically back it with your exchange, call it USD, right? Back it on different with different assets at the exchange level, and then say, okay, well, USDH is now backed by Biddle, or backed by Pi USD, or backed by whoever wants to, could be Sky's new USDS, right? So that I think that's a good idea. I think it is patently unfair that many of the apps that are generating the demand for all of this profit for someone else don't get any of that profit, right?
Yeah.
Like Uniswap should get some of the basically the profit from all the USDC paired there, right? Why does it get a free ride, right? At Circle's profit, when like Uniswap is generating the demand for it.
Yeah, and it to benefit the users themselves. There's a little bit of regulation at the moment that is hindering that. Like stablecoins aren't meant to give interest if they're to US customers, I think, or something along those lines. But there is still some work to be done on the regulatory side, but the improvement since the sort of Gary Gensler days is absolutely night and day, and that's why.
And there is kind of a loophole on the interest thing where you say, oh, no, it's not interest. It's a marketing budget, right? Yeah. We're going to take the treasury's income that we get as a company. We're going to put it in the marketing department. So it's under a different column of the spreadsheet. And then we're going to give it to all the holders as part of a marketing expense for the promote the growth of USDC. And suddenly that's not a security. And we're not paying you to hold USDC, right? We're giving you a marketing budget that came from the profits from generating USDC. It's a weird loophole workaround that's basically proliferating.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of stablecoins,
Sure.
Shopify not too long ago. Sorry, you go.
No. Go ahead.
You wanted to say?
Well,
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
ask after
Shopify.
you're done. I want to hear what you got to say about Shopify.
Okay. Yeah, Shopify not too long ago integrated base e-commerce protocol. So if you click out of the things that you're on currently and maybe go to the top of the page and just search for Shopify, and it'll be the only result, I think. The one at the bottom. Yeah, perfect. So this one hasn't got as much traction as I initially thought it has, but it keeps getting these pulses of activity. So recently, like this week, it's settled about 20k, which, considering it's settled 84k in total, is quite a significant percentage in the past week. And these pulses are getting bigger over time, which you can see in the graph slightly below. Yeah, that big spike there is 22k in one day. And these numbers are like, they're small, but it's one of these trends that I hope is going to grow, and it'll be a bit like an acorn that starts small and maybe grows quite slowly, but its roots and everything grow deep. So there it's showing how many like different merchants have received it, like new merchants comparing to returning merchants. Definitely seeing quite a lot more new ones compared to returning. I think that's because people are just trying out this payment method on these different Shopify providers.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is a new thing that Shopify has rolled out where people can pay for things inside Shopify using USDC across just the base
Correct.
chain.
Yeah, just across the base chain at the moment, and I think that's probably going to stay that way. And also, it's only if a Shopify site enables this feature. So it's not enabled by default currently. And if it was to be enabled by default, then that would probably make these stats go way, way higher, because the amount of money that Shopify moves every day is billions.
Well, so I guess my question is this just like a proof of concept that Shopify is doing with base? Yeah. Or is this, I mean, let me put it a different way. If for some reason I just happen to get sent, USDC that sits on a different layer too, it would be nice if Shopify would just take it and, swap it or do whatever they got to do to satisfy the deal. And then
I don't think that's Shopify's job necessarily.
Okay.
To figure out how to bridge and convert value, right? I think the larger chain has this modular architecture. We basically can convert value on the fly so that the receiver can specify what token and where they want it. And we can get it from the payer, who can specify what token they want to hold, to the receiver, right? In a atomic transaction, even if it is a cross chain, it might not be atomic in a literal sense, but with guarantees that if a transaction happens on chain 1, it will be included in the next block on chain 2, right? We have inclusion lists and other ways of guaranteeing so that you can dispose of your, ALUSD on Arbitrum and get to USDC on base, basically in one transaction. And the receiver just gets a commitment that says, the USDC on base will be there. And that's good enough to let the payment flow proceed. As long as it's, finalized, it can't be reverted in any way, and the money's guaranteed to arrive, then sure, right? I
would agree with that, but I'd push back slightly, because it's how we abstract these things away for the everyday consumer. I think for like people who like yourself who are more technical, seeing those options and things is what you probably want. But for the mainstream, we're going to have to abstract quite a lot of this away, and maybe some of that's on Shopify.
Oh, at a UX level, sure. At a UX level, Shopify will just say like pay, right? And maybe there'll be a drop down that says like, here's the assets we see you have, what do you want to pay with, right? But from Shopify perspective, they won't make you fill out where you're sending it to. It'll just be like, and the fact that it's going to USDC versus anything else won't matter. Be like, which of these assets do you want to pay with? We see you have ALUSD and FraxUSD and MIM and PyUSD and other things, and they're spread out across all these chains. So they'll just kind of be like, here's where we see the money. What do you want to pay with? And then it'll go, right?
Well, it is early days, so hopefully some of these things, get resolved over time. That way, if people get some USDC sent to them into whatever wallet because they sold a stereo on Facebook or however it all works out, it'd be nice to be able to spend that money elsewhere in somebody's Shopify account and abstract away some of that frustration. Untouchable 2K asks, what did Base do to lower the spam addresses?
So their gas target was originally half of their gas limit, which meant that when the amount of transactions or the amount of throughput activity on that chain is below target, it's super cheap. And that means that bot activity is going to be higher because it's cheaper for them to do things. And you think about arbitrage, if the cost of doing arbitrage is small, there's going to be more arbitrage happening. And more spam as well. So what they did is they're continuing to increase their limit over time, but instead of having their target being halfway, it's only 1/3. And they may, as they scale it up, go, oh, okay, we'll make it a quarter. So they've got this capacity when there's like an airdrop or something, there's a lot of activity and people are willing to pay more. Then they can still have the capacity to do that without the chain sort of really slowing down. But they're just doing it in a way that means that their typical sort of activity that's happening, that's targeted, is much lower than their maximum.
There you go. That's great. That's a great question. The thing I was going to mention earlier, and this is a bit off topic, but on topic as far as keeping data and analytics going. Is there any self-reporting or reportable way that these companies can signal? For instance, Circle is making a ton of money off of USDC. What are they doing to put some money in the hands of developers or public goods, or for lack of a better word, like well, I said about open source projects. Is there any way that Growthepie could you imagine like seeing all these different chains, but then it also shows as a percentage of their gross profits, they have either reported or self-reported that they've donated, 1.5% towards the Ethereum Foundation or Octant or, any number of public goods or open source protocols. Any of that out there?
That's a great suggestion, and it's something that I'll mention to the team, and we'll probably try and get that implemented. We do track some things like Glow Dollar, for example. So Glow Dollar is a stablecoin that gives its yield to public goods. When I say yield, I mean the money that they're making from your money. Yeah.
Applications or trackers? Okay.
A tracker, yeah.
Glow Dollar holders. Glow Dollar is a fiat-backed stablecoin that funds public goods. With Glow Dollar, this sounds like a rapper's coin. You can help fund public goods, Gorilla, and charitable causes just by holding a stable coin. It's a new donationless form of philanthropy. Donationless, interesting. So just by virtue of using it,
you're not giving away the dollar. You're giving away the interest on it.
Interesting. And then you have the different groups that are holding Glow Dollars, huh? Oh,
some
cool.
Familiar names that are big in public goods like Gitcoin have a certain amount of Glow Dollar. They do campaigns that are linked to Glow Dollar. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are also aware of Octants, which we also have a tracker for. That's Glow Dollar's website. Definitely recommend people check them out. They're not the biggest stablecoin, I'm not going to lie, but they are getting a bit of traction, and I think there's something to watch over the longer term. These things sort of take time to play out, and it's like a learning process. And
they just need to get some DAOs that are willing to, donate some of like the curve bribes or something in order to create liquidity on the GLO dollar. which is a fine idea, right? Bribes are a force multiplier on liquidity, so it'll drum up demand at a greater than $1 ratio. But yeah, the market cap's like what? It's not even 10 million or something right now. So I wouldn't say it's highly successful. They need to really fight tooth and nail to get someone with significant CVX or CRV to basically incentivize a curve pool.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, but that's one of the examples. There's like Optimism do retro public goods, and there's a lot of other chains and ecosystems and stacks that do different things. Probably if you on the menu on the left hand side, if you go down to public goods,
hey, there we go.
first option there, yeah. I haven't looked at this page in a while because we made it quite a long time ago. But yeah, these are some of the rounds that they've done. It's how much they've given them over that time.
Yeah, it'd be neat if these companies could either have some, I don't know how they would set up like an API for you guys to track, but if they just self-reported to you guys and you plugged in the data, it'd be a good social signal too, because then it encourages, hey, people like giving to charity and showing off charity to their friends. And I don't even mean charity necessarily. It could be, hey, we really need to fix some things related to this smart contract thing or that protocol level thing. We're just gonna throw $100,000 towards it, and then that metric could show up on Growthepie. Please don't misunderstand me. Not everything needs to be a charity thing. Sometimes it's like we need to work as a group to fix shit that needs fixing, faster and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's cool.
I kind of look at a lot of public good funding as almost like crowdfunding. That would be difficult for like one person or one organization to fund, but if there's enough demand for it from like small individuals, they can signal to these bigger players that, hey, this is worth you funding because it'd be useful to us. That's something like Octant does by allowing its people to. Are you looking for your address?
Yeah, I was going to say.
It might not have. It might not have all the .eth in there.
Oh, the ENS. Let me see. Better not do that on live stream. Well, no, on my jtnickel.eth address. Let me pop it in here. I think I got some GLM locked up in there. In fact, I know I do. Let's see. I thought you could Google that shit now. One second. I thought you could. It tried to make it into an HTTP. How cute. Okay, here it is. Yeah. So if you Google it the right way, all right. There we go. It doesn't even show the amount blocked, but yeah, I'm in there. I've had it in there for a long time. That's great. Huh. That's cool. I didn't know that you guys tracked all that stuff. That's fun. Very cool.
Yep. I even lose track of all the stuff that we track because
it's amazing.
Got our fingers in a lot of different pies.
Yeah, once you guys were like, hey, let's start this thing, and it's like, wow, there's a spaghetti of projects out there these days, It used to be so easy back when everybody was just trying to, put their ETH in the DAO.
Oh God, that takes me back.
I remember where I was.
Yeah.
God dang, that was a long time ago. I can't believe it. How long ago that was.
So on that subject of us having a lot of pages right now, we haven't released a lot of the changes that we're working on, but they're more like UX upgrades to the things that we already have. So we are going to be launching more pages in the future, but we don't want to forget the pages that we got. UX is really important to us, and we think it's like a missing part in a lot of crypto. So we want to be part of the solution to that, at least in the analytics side. So we're working on quite a few UX improvements that will be rolled out by the end of the year. Some hopefully by the end of this month. So yeah, that's in terms of new pages, that's going to be a bit later on, but we're going to be improving our current providing, and like on our single chains page that you were showing earlier when you showed Fractal, we're going to be showing transactions per second on that page rather than just on the ecosystem page. Yeah, we're redoing a lot of things to try and make it clean and more user friendly, and the search as well is going to be optimized to make it even more user friendly.
It's pretty neat, though. I mean, I love stuff like this. It reminds me of Transaction Street, that website where you see all the South Park characters getting on the buses and shit.
Us releasing this made us realize how much people like movement and like things that are updating like in real time. So that is going to be something we're going to try and do more of in the future, with applications as well in the longer term. That's something that we think is important when like a game launches. You don't want to hear about the stats a day later. You want to see it live as it's happening. So yeah, we're going to be exploring that.
It'd be neat to make a little widget for OBS, just a little Growthepie widget that shows like price transaction per second. I could just have it run across the screen or whatever, like a ticker. Growthepie ticker for OBS. Just all you gotta do is put it on the feed. I mean, not that we would get you a lot of traction, but I think Bankless could, or somebody.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, for sure. Robinhood would be another good thing for, as long as we've got time.
Yeah, let's do it.
You let me know when I'm taking too much time.
No, we're good. You're here. Let's do it. Robinhood. Tokenized stock.
The bottom one, quick price. Yeah.
Can you tell me real quick before we go into this, what was the difference in those search results? Like if applications versus quick bites, what is the different page for?
So, a quick bite is like an article that we do that's data driven on the subject matter, and sometimes we'll also have application metrics for them because their application is running on one of the layer 2s that we track. We can show you like how many active addresses or how many transactions they're having over different time periods.
Okay.
But the quick bite itself is probably a bit more informative.
Gotcha.
For like an view of which stocks are being tracked and how many stocks and what the progression is. Nice. So unlike, I don't know if you guys watched the announcement of this. I think it was in France not too long ago when Vlad, the owner of Robinhood, announced this. Did you guys catch that at all?
I remember the announcement. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was basically trying to say that they're gonna have a platform on website and mobile that's gonna be centralized, and it's gonna be for European users only to begin with, hopefully onboarding US customers, and they're gonna basically do the tokenization in the back end, and that's gonna be their first step towards having stocks as tokens that you can use in DeFi later on. So at the moment, they're just being tokenized in the back end, and we're not seeing trading volume. We're seeing the daily change. So they're burning stocks when more has been sold than bought. But if more has been bought than sold, then they mint more versions of that stock.
Right.
Each stock has got an address.
Right. So this is basically how ETFs work, right? Where you have like the ETH ETF, and if people buy the ETF is over NAV, and they're obligated to mint and sell shares of the ETF in order to buy the underlying and sort of maintain PEG. However, the reason that this is not available to U.S. customers is basically if you have something that is offered to U.S. customers, you have to KYC. You have to keep track of who is owning it. You have to have a cap table and all of that. There's a different set of laws that applies to, basically what are securities, but offered to non-U.S. customers. It predates all the Securities Acts and all the tracking of all the KYC and AML stuff as you sell it to non-U.S. persons. And the difference there is it's essentially ledgerless. So you don't have to KYC. You just have to make sure at the time of sale, is to the best of your ability, it's not a U.S. person. And then at that point, you don't keep track of who it is. So when it hits the secondary market, you can now put that on Uniswap's KYC list, right? You only have to KYC at the time of issuance. And then there's basically a period of time where that person has to hold it and while it seasons. But after that, it's free to move about. And so if it ends up in the hands of US people, well, that's just, an unfortunate side effect of a loophole, right? And so where they're using this separate rail to basically, I think eventually the ridiculousness of this will force its way through the courts or force its way through Congress as we get the rise of tokenized stocks and this model works. I think that there will be some outrage going through Congress as to like, why are U.S. citizens disadvantaged that they can't get all these benefits, the blockchain, the 24/7 markets, the yield farming, whatever that's going to happen, on chain. Why are U.S. citizens put at a disadvantage by these laws? And they'll probably change them eventually, but you have to get people pissed off enough to make that happen first, right?
Bingo.
And so this is a way to first make the U.S. citizens disadvantaged enough that maybe we get pissed off enough and change it. It's a way to bootstrap it into essentially a ledgerless system so that you can put it on Uniswap, because otherwise Uniswap would have to KYC every in and out. You have to whitelist every smart contract it could go to. Would have to be separately whitelisted, and who controls that, right? So it is annoying that it has to go through this way, but there is a method to the madness here. Right, there is a deliberate strategy to be able to grow it through this kind of legal loophole that predates a lot of the control systems, but only can apply to non-US citizens. And then through that, we're hopefully going to be able to get to a critical mass of enough billions of dollars of value that they are not going to patch the loophole. Instead, they'll patch the main system, right, to get rid of the stupidity.
Yeah, I completely agree. So this is like stage one of 3 stages that they're planning to roll out. In this particular stage, they're not actually giving the users custody of these tokens. They're just sort of proving that they can tokenize them. So they're in control of the wallets that are holding these tokens on behalf of the users. And I'm not actually sure why they can't do that for US citizens. I wonder, because it's still KYC and everything. I believe they're just wanting to make sure that they can do that, like get permission first.
Well, they're seeing if someone sues them, right? Look, we did the smallest possible thing. Is someone going to act on that? No? Okay. Let's do the next thing, right? So it's staged for litigious reasons, right? To be as defensible as possible. To be like, look, we did this. We got to like $1 billion, and like no one filed a complaint. We tried to talk to the SEC, and we tried to talk to the CFTC, and we had this little product offering as a concrete thing we were doing. We offered our plans, and no one did anything about that, right? So then we roll out stage 2. So it's, you talk to your lawyers about how to minimize the legal liability, and a slow-faced rollout like this is what they're going to say, right? As opposed to being big, bold, and splashy. Of course, I wish that Coinbase just say, fuck it, YOLO. We have coin stock on our platform. If you want to vote, it has to be deposited to our platform. Yeah. But the second you withdraw it, go nuts, right? You have a non-voting share tokenized wrapper around the stock that you can go to the playground with. And when you deposit it to Coinbase, that's when it goes back onto the ledgered system, or when they know who holds it, and they have a full cap table, etc. I wish they do that. I know that tokenized version of Coinbase stock has been in the work for years. But Operation Choke Point has culturally scarred them. So they are very cautious in the wake of all of that.
Well, I guess that their brand is being regulatory compliant as much as they can be. So they have to probably be a bit more cautious than some of the other
they regardless of how regulatory compliant they were still attacked, right? So I think that that has been a harrowing internal cultural experience. And so even with a very permissive SEC saying like green light on things, it's still not likely to happen as the front runner. They're going to let other people take that heat first and get. They're not just going to say, we did it, is it okay? They're going to say like, no, I want explicit legal, documentation from the SEC permitting it.
Yeah. I'd say so far in this stage, it's been pretty successful. So there's over 5 million worth of tokenized stocks, considering that doesn't include the US market, which would be trading, which would be a huge player in this once that's enabled. And obviously this number is much smaller than what the daily trading volume would be, and that's a number that I'm interested to see on chain, which we should see probably at stage 2. So hopefully by maybe early next year we'll start to see that volume of buys and sells actually happen on chain. It'll still be probably custodied by them until stage 3 or phase 3, which is when they plan to.
So you just mean the actual the routing, the matching, the settlement will happen on chain as opposed to their database.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it happening in real time, which is great for like data nerds like me, because we love to see things that are open, and like when it's opaque and it's happening only daily, we're missing a lot of the sort of granularity.
Well, and that's a tech demo for them, right? It's saying like, oh, well, we could take any stock and do this to it, right? And therefore we don't have to go through Citadel, right? For order flow sell, we can go through our own exchange and maybe a hood L2, right? So there's a long-term path forward there towards full, like not just tokenize as secondary, but tokenize as primary for the main exchange for Robinhood, right? Convert all their legacy systems to it. As the tech has been proven out and the regulators aren't giving them heat for it.
Yeah, another thing that they're battling with as well. They gave away a certain amount of private companies, so these are companies that are not listed on the stock exchange, and I think they were so ChatGTP, so OpenAI, and SpaceX, I think was the other one, and the way they did that was only to European users, and they gave them away, and they're non-tradable at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how that advances, because in like outside of America, it's quite common for people to be able to invest in private companies without having to go through like any sort of checks. They don't have to have a minimum balance of $1 million, which I think it's something like that in America. You got to prove that you're an educated investor. I don't know what the terminology is, but that's not common outside of America. That's especially in Europe, that's not common at all.
The word is accredited investor, by the way.
Thank you.
But actually what the criteria are for being an accredited investor. So you have to say, are you an accredited investor? They have to click that. They have to make a signature. But do you have to go and get a proof of their assets from them? No. So it's kind of like you go to the porn site and it's asked, are you over 18? And like the 12-year-old clicks yes and then goes through, right? It's that level of check and compliance. Basically, anyone can be an accredited investor, but you have to get their name and signature and a thing that says they are an accredited investor. Now, there are some official rules, like they have to have $1 million, as you said, that, but the enforcement of that check is not on the person who is receiving the form, right? So it's kind of like, as I said, the porn site and the child being able to go through it, right? Like, cool, click the checkbox and click enter, go.
Interesting. I presumed because they were being cautious on that one that they would have some liability to check that. But yeah, it's interesting that it's more on the user to sort of confirm that they are eligible to invest. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's basically, if push comes to shove, when you sign that, if you aren't an accredited investor, the law is there to protect you, the person, from being stupid, ignorant retail, right? Dumb money, and then doing something that smart money should be doing, get back in your peasant cage, right? So if you lie on that form, click check, and then lose money, and then you come after them saying like, but I'm just a dumb, stupid retail, they say, well, you defrauded us, right? You lied and misrepresented yourself on this form. Well, of course, we would have never let you, dumb money, do the dumb thing, but you told us you were a smart person, right?
Playing
so that's where it is, right? It's so stupid. You're allowed to go buy a lottery ticket. You're allowed to go buy, a Beanie Baby. You're allowed to go buy things that are much, much worse financial investments, including meme coins, because they're not securities, right? But the second something might be a good idea, we have to make sure only smart people can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It needs modernizing. And I think these are like the baby steps that are needed to happen before we reach like everything coming on chain. But I think all three of us here are waiting and can see that vision. It's just sometimes
I could see the execution. It feels slow in the day, but in 4 years, you're going to be like, well, that was a breakneck speed. I mean, compared to TradFi speeds, right? This is happening at breakneck paces. The rise, like the stable coins, as you saw, the TVL growth in that's happening at a breakneck pace. If you look at the multiple companies pursuing tokenization competitively against each other for who can go fastest, it's driving it in terms of TradFi at unprecedented paces. And that's only going to be happening because of the current SEC climate is so permissive, and Project Crypto, right, across the board is saying, like, this is how we're going to prioritize our internal labor to give people the time to ask questions, engage with us, and where we can, we'll give you some degree of like a sandbox you can play in, even if the legality is gray. You'll get kind of a writ of intent and from the SEC that says, go ahead and try. And, we might have to shut you down later, but for now, go ahead and try. You'll get a window where we're not going to see you.
One of the things that I love about the layer 2 sort of roadmap is that all these layer 2s trying different strategies and have different focuses. And we mentioned Cello earlier and their payments. They're a bit less focused on the US market compared to like maybe bases. And it's great that all these other markets are being explored, and there's all these little experiments happening, like with base changing their target to 1/3 rather than 1/2. And Ethereum mainnet can learn from these. So in the future, Ethereum mainnet may choose to have a different ratio of target to maximum gas.
I mean, it's based on when you look at the gas chart, right, and you look at the tips, there's these really tall spikes, right? So what the optimal ratio is basically how vertical do you want that spike versus how wide do you want that spike, right? There's a certain amount of activity that's highly in demand right now. We're all claiming the airdrop or whatever, right? How much can we left compress that, right? So that everyone can do what they want to do in times of congestion. And that's that ratio. Versus what problems does it cause at network level? Things like, uncles and whatnot. How much of a problem does it cause when we handle a spike of a certain magnitude? There's a limit to stake growth. We don't want all the blocks to be, that full all the time. But insofar as there is a short event where we have a high demand, how vertical do you want that spike to be? How much can the network handle during a short burst versus in a prolonged 10-year period?
I think I lost ETH Wave.
No, I'm back. I'm sorry, my electric Hoover was just going off, and I didn't want that to be in the recording.
What was going off?
I've got an autonomous electric Hoover that's decided now's the ideal time to clean. So I didn't want that noise in the background, so I just quickly turned it off.
It's sucking up all the transactions fees. It's sucking up all the Solana spam. That's what it is. Aerodrome. I noticed you guys are tracking that. Can you tell us, or maybe Logri, what is Aerodrome? It seems like it's pretty popular at the moment.
You want to take this one?
Yeah, so there's a variety of exchanges, and sometimes you get something like Curve, or I think Aerodrome is a fork of Liquidity, which was an Endochronia project that has been forked. But basically, you get a DEX that is a fork of a known code base, but they're going to own the growth and promotion of that on a specific chain. So Aerodrome is Base's version of this. And it does, I think that it's one of the things that supports compressed liquidity management, CLM pools. And it's just it's the major Base exchange.
Gotcha.
As opposed to, Uniswap being everywhere, right? It's I think the Velodrome is that's the one for Arbitrum, and Aerodrome is the one for Base off the top of the head.
Okay. Yeah. That helps. The idea that they're their own exchange on Base. Okay. Wow.
But so they're taking a fork of public code. They didn't develop most of the code. Maybe there's a slight tweak to the tokenomics in some way, like how the profit is redistributed might have a slight tweak here or there. But the actual exchange logic is just a fork. Off the top of my head, I want to say Liquidity, but I could be wrong.
I mean, is that
that sounds right to me.
is that kind of gross in a way?
Solidly. Is solidly a fork of liquidity? It could just be all the same. Could be all the same descendants.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that bugs me. Okay.
On this page, you can also see like the active addresses and how much fees they paid to the chain. So if you higher up, where your cursor was just before, on top of transaction count, if you just click there, you don't need to click. Well, you can click the arrows, but you can also click active addresses, and it'll drop down, and then you can select multiple if you want to.
Oh wow! Gosh, see, that's a cool trick. So it opens them all up.
I want to make that more obvious if we can, because it's not always obvious that we've got that functionality. So yeah, we're always exploring how to improve our UX, but you can so if there's been like a transaction spike, you can compare that to active addresses, and you can also see the impact that that's had in terms of revenue for that chain. We're also wanting to add revenue for the actual individual application. That's something we're going to be exploring. More and more metrics for applications is going to be definitely on our roadmap, because that's something we want to support. Is the builders of these applications, they need data to understand how their application is being used, which contracts are being used, and like who their biggest users are and things like that, and what time of day are they having the most activity, that type of thing.
Nice. Okay.
Yep, fact check that. So Aerodrome is from Solidly, which is the actual name of the Androcronia stuff that everyone's forked from.
Gotcha.
I was close.
Well,
I'll leave that one.
Yeah, you're good at this stuff. Let's see. It's a spam comment. I'll kick this guy off the chat. Boom. All right. What else do we have before we move on to the second part of the show? Anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, I'll probably quickly run you through block space. So if you move your cursor down towards block space there, it'll open up two options, and we'll look at category comparison.
Excellent.
I'll see if that page loads. Yeah, perfect. So this is one of the pages that's maybe a bit more for our technical users who are wanting to see what is actually being done on each chain. So through the Open Labels initiative, we've got loads of contracts tagged and tied to different categories and to different applications. But within these categories, we've also got subcategories. So I mentioned earlier about Celo being very good at stablecoin transfers. If you click into token transfers, just slightly to the there, if you click the little arrow that just below it, it'll drop down, and you can deselect all of them apart from stablecoins, which is the one on the right. So deselect that one, and deselect that one. And because Celo's not been around for very long, if you put it to 180-day time span, which is just at the top of your current screen, can see that they're significantly higher than a lot of other chains. Now, there will be some stablecoin activity that we're not tracking in this because it's to do with DeFi interactions rather than stablecoin being moved from one address to another address. It might be being put into a decentralized exchange to buy something that wouldn't be tracked in this particular metric. It would be tracked in DeFi. But yeah, this is just if you're interested in what chains are doing and how chains are different, this is a great thing for people to explore. As well as if there's a sudden burst of activity on a chain, they can see where's that burst come from, what category, what subcategory, and even which applications themselves. So I just thought I'd make your users aware of this one because it's one of our gems that's often not known about as much as I'd like it to be.
That's nice. Yeah, it really peels back the layers of the onion, like it tells such a Growthepie does a great job of telling the whole story, like the data doesn't lie. So, when people use data to fit narratives and something doesn't smell quite right with the argument, you can come here and see for yourself, and like being able to stack things up or take things out, and you can really get a complete picture, not to mention on several different timelines. Very neat. Very cool. I just did the chain overview one too. Look at that.
Yeah. So this one's a little bit more complicated. As we've added more chains, it's got maybe a little bit harder to understand. But if you scroll down a little bit, we've got the overview of all the chains. And if you go into, slightly higher, it's that colorful chart that you just scroll past. If you click absolute just below it.
Absolute just below.
That color slightly lower.
Right here.
Yeah, I think it lagged. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. And then you can do this per category. So this is not subcategories. This is only like parent categories. So you're currently on DeFi. And if you wanted to just see it for like Tyco, you could click the pink line that's at the top of your screen. Yeah. And it'll take, yeah, that's fine. And scroll down on this page and it'll have the same sort of view, but just focus on Tyco. Yeah, down there. Perfect. And yeah, you can explore it that way. Currently it's on like percentage share of usage, so that's why it's maximized. But you can again click absolute in the bottom right, which actually for Tyco it has decreased quite a bit in all categories. They'd run different campaigns at different times of the year, so they have activity spikes relating to those campaigns. At the moment it's a little bit on the lower side, but it's still like, it's an example of a base roll-up. I want to see more base roll-ups as blobs get cheaper. This is something that we'll probably see more and more of.
Fantastic. That's really neat. All right. Good stuff. Growthepie.com. ETH Wave hanging with us on the call. You want to stick around for the Doots part of the show? Are you going to be able to hang? Or?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
I'll stick around for half an hour or so. And then I've got to go. Gotta have some food.
Hey, all right. Good deal. Thank you once again to ETH Wave from growthepie.com. Check them out sometime. Get your data analytics straight from the mouth there. These guys have been such a good champion of our Ethereum subreddit and bringing a lot of great information into our daily threads, and we'll continue to do so. And, we like to check in with them about every 6 months or so. They're always building, and you should give them a follow on X at growthepie_ETH. Is that correct? I think I got that right. And if you're watching us on X, give us a like. We enjoy everybody that hangs out with us on YouTube and Twitch. And my mom hangs out with us on LinkedIn. So glad to have everybody wherever you are for this 125th episode. Well, my friends, it is time to move on to the Doots of the week. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch this show before, everything that we do is derived out of the our Ethereum subreddit. If you don't have a Reddit account, you need to get one and just make our Ethereum your home forever.
Just keep chugging. Just keep chugging.
This is a read-along reaction series. If you want to head to dailydoots.com, designed and produced by our very own Hani Abu. All of our daily Doots are curated by Tricky Troll, and the A word helps us out with this beloved weekly list. All right, very good. Let's get into it right now with our top 10 as of today. Aiden Cairo and Ethical Trade tied at 118. I'm going to refresh the page just in case we have any late additions. Crypto Wild Currency at 125, JS Tears at 127, Hani Abu at 134, Tricky Troll at 162, Benito 2030 at 175, Superfizz at 231, Logri the Bard catching a double kill this week, moves up to 236, and Harog at the top of the leaderboard at 260. I do believe, I could be wrong, Hani Abu is going to be off for the next week. But we'll still have our podcast, but these totals may be the same next week. I'm not sure, but I'll continue to tally them up for you. All right, moving on down the list here. I was going to get through all of the upcoming conferences, but I'm going to skip that for today. ETH Wave is getting hungry, and actually I got to head out here pretty soon to go to the Nate Bargatze comedy show at Sprint Center. I can't wait to do that. And I got 2 pork butts to check on the smoker. I got a whole rugby team coming over for dinner tomorrow. And if I don't get that food ready for them, they will probably scrum me in the backyard. That would never be pretty. Let's see. We've got our morning roundup. Let's see, who is it? Oh, Frank the Tank. Frank the Tank chimes in. Ethereum, $10.9 chimes in at 45.28. I'm not even going to open up price. I know it dipped. Who cares? Alex is Kef at 0.038 on that ratio. The weekly haiku, courtesy of JS Tears. Air gap signing keys. No anxiety disease. Security breeze. How does he do it, JS Tears? How does he do it? We had JS Tears on the podcast ETH Wave last week. You know what he started? He started this little thing called ECC. He's a co-founder of ECC. He's been hiding under this moniker for all these years, making all these great haikus on Reddit. Little did we know he's a builder out there putting communities together. Our shit post of the week, user 0- well, whatever that is. It looks like a face. Shit post of the week. As the best looking member of this sub, I'm thinking about starting an OnlyFans where I sexually talk about Ethereum. Oh my gosh. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not saying I would watch, but I might. Very good.
I'm just glad it would be out there.
Hey, that's a duder number 2 getting a shit post of the week. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah, congrats. Starting an OnlyFans. Speaking of sexy talk, I got a joke for you real quick. So this guy finds a lamp and he rubs it and the genie pops out. And the genie says, hey, you get 1 wish. And the guy's like, I don't get 3 wishes. He goes, no, you get 1. And I got 3 rules. The first rule is, you can't wish for more wishes. Second rule is you can't wish for everlasting life. And the third rule is you can't wish for anyone else to come back from the dead. And he goes, that's okay. I don't want any of those things anyway. And the genie says, okay, there's your 3 rules. What would you like to wish for? And the guy says, you know those Reese's peanut butter cup packages? If like every time I opened it, it would moan sexually at me. That's what I wish for. And the genie says, I think we're actually going to have to add a 4th rule. It's terrible. I know. It's like an anti-joke. Logri the Bard, here we go. Helps to educate us about scams. Ooh, boy. We got a big Logri post here, number 2 on the Doots list.
It's not big.
Come on. I love it. So I just had a partner of mine get scammed trying to send me money. Really sad to see. They just copied the address of the last payment to me from the Gnosis Safe transaction history and sent it. Unfortunately, that last payment was using a spoofed USDC contract and wasn't initiated by them, but by another caller. And the transaction history on Gnosis Safe is really, really dumb. Some basic wisdom that I told them. Number 1, take the address from my invoice, obviously. They were just trying to save literally 1 second of switching between windows because they already were copy pasting the amount due from the invoice. Use ENS when available. A typo there will most likely just fail to resolve. It's unlikely to cause harm. Number 3, use a standalone Gnosis Safe app, not the web app. This wouldn't have solved this particular problem, but if you're using a front end, you have no control over the dependencies. This is a problem with ERC20 sends in general. As I write in my Explorer's Guide, quote, there are attackers who generate wallets with similar addresses to ones you own. They'll even dust attack you with some tiny amounts of funds to your address, so their address will appear in a short list when you fill out the send form. You can simply miskey something and replace a character somewhere. An OS virus can replace the target address in your clipboard. A malicious wallet software can replace the target address in the transaction before forwarding it to your hardware wallet. There's just a lot of things that could go wrong with this model, end quote. This entire attack vector would be better avoided if we had a decent invoicing system on chain. Ooh, Ooh, I like that idea. That's a good idea. In addition to sending them the legal invoice form, I could have sent them an invoice on chain, so I would pull the funds from them. If someone somehow hijacks the address on my pull, then an invoice goes to a scammer address and no harm is done. Does anyone here have any experience using a decent on-chain invoicing system? I know Request Network was supposed to do that back in the day, but they don't seem to support sign-in with Ethereum or even wallet logins on their site. And I'm not buying some shitty rec token to interact with a basic invoicing system. That is from Logri the Bard, author of tokenomicsexplained.com. He's got a Rabbit Hole Explorer's Guide, among other articles, including this one. Oh, it is the Rabbit Hole Explorer's Guide. There's a lot of bullet points there that Logri has put together. Yep. I'm sorry that happened to your employer or whoever you were consulting.
Yeah, it's just real sad. As ever, slow down. If you're doing something on chain, slow down. They actually had this transaction behind a multisig. So the multisig confirmer also failed to do due diligence, but they were basically just this attack was specific to Gnosis safes. So they've dust attacked pretty much every Gnosis safe address that's transacting with USDC with something similar. They go through and they find the last transaction that came out in USDC, and they replicate that number with some fake USDC token. So it looks like USDC out from them to you, but it's not USDC. It's another USDC, and it wasn't a transaction initiated by you. It's a transaction initiated by them, right?
Oh.
So it just appears in your transaction history, despite the fact that it's fake in every way possible, because the transaction history viewer in Gnosis Safe's app is really, really stupid, right? It's not really a history viewer, but it's intended for exactly the type of audience. And now they paid like a penny in spam transaction, and they got like thousands of dollars, and that is straight out of our economy, right? That's straight out of development of good on-chain apps. That's straight out of that's a huge cost to our ecosystem. But to my point of, you could build a basic invoicing system and a front end for it in a hackathon. I don't think you need really that much to it. It's basically a request for token approval. That the response that you'd click in once you get that is basically creating a token approval so I can pull from you. Token approvals are pretty standard, send from calls on the ERC20, it's pretty standard, right? People know how to connect their wallets. We just have to have some that can view and have ENS integration, and on the invoice, they'd be able to attach metadata so you'd know exactly what that was from. You'd have the on-chain record, which maybe help with some tax and documentation type stuff. So really not a big project. But I've asked around. I don't know anyone that's done this and even made a decent attempt at it.
I wonder if Megan Knapp from Franklin Payroll, she does payroll stuff. Payroll maybe is not the same as invoicing. But boy, I would reach out to Megan Knapp and see if she knows anything. Because, geez, if you're bringing that idea to her and she knows some, or even Paul Brody from EY, I'm wondering if that seems like a product right there that's going to be more in demand than ever.
I do this in a manual way right now, right? Where I send a manual invoice. I'd just like to be able to take the metadata of that in some somewhat structured way that the website understands and dump it on chain. And basically a response to that is to create a token approval. And then my response to that is to use the token approval to pull the funds to my address. Yeah. This is like literally a hackathon project for anyone that goes to like ETH Denver and wants to participate in the hackathon. Here's an idea. You could literally crank this out in a week.
Yeah, and it would be, I don't know. If you have, I'm trying to think of like, okay, let's say there's a trucking company that regularly does, no, I don't want to do trucking because I talked about it last time. Let's say you're a trusted construction outfit, and you always do work with this same company over and over. Well, somebody's got to do the invoice for all the man hours and all the paperwork and whatnot. But if it's like there's already a trusted larger agreement, it'd be nice if you could just drag and drop the invoice over to the other company and their AI reads the terms of it and everything looks good and it just automatically disperses the funds in real time. And it would be like a Shopify USDC, not just on base thing in the future where just the invoice goes to Shopify.
You could build in a cart style system where I go to the person that I'm invoicing and basically use a cart style system and say, I'm going to check out. You pay me 7,100 USDC or whatever, right? Right. You could do it that way. It would just, I don't think the semantics hold up, but I guess at a financial level, it's very similar, right?
Yeah.
Me shopping on you for some amount. There's not really an itemized set of things to buy, but an invoice does have like, well, here's the number of hours and here's other services, so I guess there is an itemized list of what you're paying for in an invoice. So in that sense, you could make a cart style solution of it. But as I said, I want the metadata for them to be able to refer back to. That's why I send a physical invoice in the first place for tax reasons. And I'd like that to be on chain to the degree that, well, they don't just have an ERC20 send. Frankly, it's the same type of problem of, okay, you go to deposit to an exchange. Here's your deposit address, ERC20 send. Scary, Yeah. The money leaves your account, and then you're waiting for an email from Coinbase for 15 minutes or whatever, and you're just like, oh no, did I just lose a fortune, right? Mm-hmm. Every time. Ridiculously scary. Why doesn't the Coinbase website allow me to connect my wallet through Rabby and do the deposit that way? Right? Zero interception chance then. I don't know how exchanges have gotten this long without adding basic functionality that we take for granted from any DApp today.
Yeah, fair point. I was chuckling a little bit ago because speaking of invoicing, there was I don't remember if it was an article or a video or something I was watching about government waste and the amount of invoices that get put into everything from NGOs, these private contractors that just have been billing the government for freaking years after COVID's done, and they're able to still sip funds out of it and they're not doing anything, so there's got to be a tied in, a proof of work aspect to it too, even if it's a trusted, contractor. It's a novel idea. I like this invoicing idea that you're talking about that can really lock tight the transaction rails that, to keep everybody, in sync together, like you said, being able to just deal directly through Coinbase via your own wallet rather than sending it into the ether and hoping that the smart contract on their end puts it in your account. It's just, I get it. All right, moving on down. The Rat J asks about blind signing. Speaking of transactions, this is a Duder number one. Duder number one for the week. Congratulations on making the list. Pretty cool when our first time Duders make the weekly show. At least I think so. I was swapping some RETH to ETH using CowSwap. I love that. I love that site. On a Ledger Nano S using MetaMask. This requires blind signing. To my untrained eye, there was nothing I could validate on the Ledger screen to confirm it was the correct transaction. This is definitely a bit of a problem. Gee, you think? I just went with it, and luckily the trade worked as intended. Is there something I should be looking for to check to ensure it's the right transaction? Is there a different wallet such as Rabby that would fix this issue? Is there a different hardware wallet that would fix this issue? Okay. At the risk of being a shill, I'm going to tell you to get a Grid Plus Lattice one. Is it perfect? No. Is it open source? No. Can you at least do address labels that show up on the device itself? Absolutely. You can actually go to every part of the CowSwap contract and label whatever you want to where anytime you're doing something, you can put the RETH address in there, the contract in there, address in there, make its label, make the label for your wallet. You could make the label for the CowSwap addresses that are involved in that smart contract. And you can make the screen show you things that are human readable in a way that really just takes out any confusion that things are working the way they should. And really, you don't need to go like completely overboard. But if you don't see those address labels pop up the way you thought they would, immediately decline. Don't do the transaction. Double check your work again. That's all I got to say about that. And I'm praying to God that they come out with the Lattice 2. They're talking about it, and it will fit in your pocket from what I understand. And I hope to God Justin LaRue hires me back on to do videos for them again, because I love that company. I love that company. I've bought more lattices than they've given me. That's how much I love it. Anyway, that's just me. Other than that, I don't know what else. There's other hardware wallets out there. Maybe you could help me. ETH Wave or Logri the Bard. Are there any other, like the other problem with Ledger, there's a million of them. I don't want to dog shit on them too much, but it's pretty easy. A lot of times you have to use like their web face. Don't you have to use like their web interface for some of this stuff too? And it's kind of like, you're really giving them all your data every time you do anything with their devices. Is kind of the short answer. I hope somebody can correct me on that, but that's to my knowledge, not to mention the fact that I get so much spam and text messages and bullshit related to their data leaks. Okay. Not a fan of that company. All right, Rhythm of ETH raises a valid concern about the centralization risk of all major treasury companies being located in one jurisdiction. Ooh, Deuter number 54 for the week. Rhythm of ETH says, here's a thought exercise. What are the risks to Ethereum when it comes to DATs, all being US-based, and with a combined target of roughly 20% of all ETH currently in existence? That's a good question. I find myself thinking that having a variety of DATs is meaningless if they are all US-based. What's the likelihood of a seizure of assets or a flat-out prohibition in the future? Ethereum is pushing for scale, but also for privacy features. I fear the latest policy shift is just mirage, and that the end game is too damaging for the power accumulation of any government. So it's likely going to be slammed into the ground, not even by political opposition. It's even more likely to happen at the hands of the same administration currently encouraging it. How likely is it that Ethereum actually gets embedded into the current traditional financial system so that detaching it becomes more problematic than the alternative of letting it run? Wow, that's some freaking pot smoking questions there. I like it. Exactly 0 people replied to them though. I mean, I've thought about that too. If you get a total capital capture, do you start to lose? I don't know. That's a good question. Does it get so imbued that you can no longer separate back out into a privacy thing if you wanted it to? I don't know. Remains to be seen. I mean, BlackRock's got a seat at the table now, boys. I don't know what that influence in the political swings of the wind, and the pendulum swing hard.
I mean,
it's a thing.
It could crush the price down real quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as though 20% is enough to disrupt the Ethereum chain.
Bingo.
And not all that 20% is going to be under the same staking provider. Even if FundSpot owns even if Bitminer owns the ETH, and then they give it to Lido or something, well, then guess what? Like, Lido is actually the one that decides what client to run, even if Bitminer doesn't like that, right? The only option is to request withdrawal and then take it to we'll say in this term would be compliant staker that would follow whatever the judge's whims are, right?
Mm-hmm.
At which point, we'd see that happening with plenty of time. That withdrawal queue would get pretty long. They'd start to move it over. We'd see this unfolding. The Ethereum Foundation get together. We could decide to do something pretty fun to the funds wherever they're moving to, right? Including just zero the address.
Yeah. Wow.
You can just say like, well, those coins are gone because those are going to be used to attack the network, and we see that coming, right? So there's
the tech.
these
the-
play stupid games, win stupid prizes, basically, right?
Yeah, the tech oligarchs fork out the government.
And then if Bitminer had its address zeroed, they would sue the U.S. government for forcing them to do something that got their address zeroed, right? They'd sue the U.S. government for billions of dollars and probably win the case, right? And the U.S. government would cover the loss, right? So it'd be, yeah. I'm not really scared of the network health from this. Even if they got the 33%, I still wouldn't be scared of the network health for this, because part of the ETH that they're going to have, going from a yield-bearing strategy, you want to optimize your yield. Is the optimal yield staking? Hell no. In no sense. At any point since the merge has happened, has the optimal yield been staking, right?
Yeah.
The optimal yield is stupid games with liquidity leverage using Gearbox and stuff, right? Like that's how you get the most yield on your ETH. You're taking increased risks and you're getting increased yield, right? You're doing, like, for a long time, you got more yield on carry trades, basically on the delta between the ETH lend rate on Aave and the staking rate. So you could get like a 2% per loop on 7 loops and make like over 10% APR, right? That type of stuff is where the increased yield is. So if they have a fiduciary obligation to their shareholders, and they say they've got like a DeFi expert on chain, they're not going to yeet all the ETH into staking anyway. They're going to, and you listen to Tom Lee, he says himself, he's going to play kingmaker of the best DeFi protocols and use the ETH in their reserve to basically argue for better rates or special treatment, or basically play mafia with billions of dollars, right?
Right.
And that means he's not going to be staking it. So that can't really affect the chain health. Being forced to dump it, of course, would do terrible things with the price. We'd see another bear market. But like Ethereum's going to chug right along.
That's true.
I'm not worried about the DApp being under any particular jurisdiction. Even if they got up to 30%, it's still spread among multiple DATs. Yeah, there's a power law in there, but it'll still be spread amongst multiple DATs. And even if it's under a DAT, even if it's staked, the staking provider has choice there, right? Rocket Pool is not going to like bow to a judge's whims, even if the ETH that's being owned there is from, Tom Lee, right? So it's, I'm not overly worried about this at this level. Certainly, even if they doubled their target, which they're nowhere close to their target, I still wouldn't be particularly worried. I think it's going to, in the same way that we sometimes see Justin Sun do whale games on Ethereum, where they do some clever thing to like liquidate a bunch of longs over here, liquidate a curb founder over there or something, right? He sometimes throws around a lot of money on chain in order to do plays you can only do if you have a lot of money.
Right.
I think we'll see Tommy Lee eventually start to do similar things on ETH. And frankly, it's transparent. I'm all for it. Let's bring on the whale games. Let's go.
Yeah, bring them
free
on.
Market, right? Literally, it's a permissionless chain. It's credibly neutral. It's not going to stop you for doing stuff that basically anyone can do. Like, you want to do stuff with a lot of money? Well, I got a flash loan for you for some things, right? It's all possible. The great thing about Ethereum is it democratizes access to all this stuff.
That's
right?
fact.
We can all see what you're doing, and you can all basically, if you can source the money, do all the same things. Anyone can.
Anyone can play.
Be smart.
I like it.
Fatality.
This is Sparta!
All right. Tom S. Mack reports on incredibly bullish on-chain signals, and then Logri the Bard elaborates on the bullish signals. Duder number 2. Tom S. Mack writes, just remarkable bullish signals between 55,000 and 400,000 daily ETH leaving the exchanges and into self-custody on a daily basis, followed by Whales Wallet selling BTC and then buying ETH is perhaps the most bullish signals that I've ever seen since the 1.5 to 1.7 bottom. What does that mean? 1,500 to 1,700 bottom, or $1.50, $1.70?
No, he forgot a K. Don't worry.
Okay, good. And I've been doing this for a very long time. Financial institutions, both American and foreign, are stacking at incredible speed. You're not going to want to miss this. And Logri replies, accumulation signals have been flashing everywhere for months. Boom, boom, boom. And he has a link to a video from 18 days ago It's a bull video. I remember this. Yeah. We read
You read this one already. Yeah.
Got it. They've been flashing everywhere for months. Retail wallet share has been falling while whale wallet share has been accumulating at a massive rate. Exchange reserves are plummeting, and DATs have been grabbing all they can before their MNAV runs out of fuel. I do expect we'll see some debt offerings soon where they can feed the corporate bond payments using ETH yields. If it works for MicroStrategy, where BTC has zero yield, I see little reason it shouldn't work for ETH with an inherent 2.5% yield. If the DXY wants to take another leg down and Powell lowers rates, that will make this even more favorable for whichever DAT wants to try it. I just saw in the news, I think it was Fidelity or somebody's getting ready to start staking. They were playing.
Yeah. Well,
was it Fidelity?
Well, ETH Wave. We were talking about accumulation signals. You got some ETH. You got some chain data. What are your favorite accumulation signals?
One that I quite like is there's a strong correlation between application revenue. So if you search app in the search on the top right, search app, and it'll be the double P, a top result.
Great setup, Logri. Perfect.
Yeah, thanks very much. Probably just if so at the top right is a check button, and if you just double click it. Top right of the chain list. My bad. So
top right of the chain list. Oh, right here. Got it. Okay.
Double click that. Cool. Actually, it'd be easier to take you to the ecosystem page. Sorry, ecosystems page is easiest. It's the top left, yeah.
Okay.
And then scroll down. Application revenues of that first chart there. So you're currently in ETH, which is actually quite an interesting thing to do because this correlates pretty perfectly with price when you do it in USD. But when you move it to ETH, it takes out the effect of ETH price affecting like things like staking, things like that. So this is quite an interesting indicator. So what the applications are actually doing, irrespective of ETH price change, and it is influenced by volatility. So it's going to spike when there's a big volatility change in price. But when it's put to the ETH, it's quite an interesting way to view it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Look at the.
I mean, I see ETH over on the left side. So this looks like it's there. So you're saying you're not that bullish? I mean, it's nowhere near the peak. It's certainly above the last trough.
So those spikes there are from volatility changes. So there's lots of DeFi activity when the price changes radically. There's lots of arbitrage opportunities. So that's why application revenue spikes then. But like taking a longer term view of this trend, because I only trade on the longer term. Measured in ETH is actually an interesting thing to do. If you
clearly up and to the right?
Yeah, if you were to take it a step further, I would try and like account for that volatility and try and remove that, maybe with a daily moving average or somehow account for that.
Just something that says like 30 or 90 day average would be fine.
But overall, it's up and to the right, and when it's in USD, so if you scroll to the top of the page, there's a ETH USD toggle at the very top of the top right in the search. If you scroll back down to the application revenue, that tracks price very, very closely.
Interesting.
Over that time period.
Is that an accumulation signal or like a chain activity signal? Because this to me looks more like, well, there's all the profit from the arbitrage that's happening from the major, chain swing, right?
We probably this is probably the closest metrics we've got to that. You're right. It's not perfect for what you're asking.
When I'm referring to things like whale wallets, right? It's like, okay, what is the percentage of ETH that belongs to wallets that have more than 1,000 ETH, right? And you can see that shifting towards whale accumulation. Basic facts like that are, again, still chain data. Maybe not. Anyway, I don't know where you'd fit it on your organization here, but that's definitely a sign. Exchange reserves are another sign I often quote. We just broke through 17 million exchange reserves on the way down. and
those
that's just plummeting.
metrics are, like on DeFi Llama, and there's good websites like that'll have those metrics. We're more focused on the activity metrics, which is a little bit harder in terms of like looking for value and how value moves. But it is something that we might explore in a quick bite, particularly maybe focused on stablecoin value, but maybe also ETH value transfers, and sort of seeing like how that changes over time. That would probably make a good quick bite.
Well,
but
you could get the volume of it and then have basically a histogram of the wallets that it went to, some type of I can't really put it in words very easily, but you basically want to say, okay, the ETH is moving, but where is it moving to? Is it moving to big wallets? Is it moving to small wallets? What percentage of the, you can imagine like a heat chart, what percentage of the ETH that's moving is moving to wallets of a given size or higher, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
We
could definitely do that. Again, it might be, we do to try and like our primary focus is on how the chain is being used in terms of like activity rather than value, but there is definitely value to value metrics, so it's maybe something we're going to branch out to later on in our roadmap.
Yeah, I think Growthepie you should have whale wars down here. We're just like people could set alerts on when, like a custom alert if wallets containing more than 100,000 ETH move any significant percentage of their funds. Like let's say they decide to move 5% of their funds, where did they send it to? And I don't know if that's even part of your model or would ever want to entertain something like that, but that's kind of interesting.
I mean, what I'm interested in is flows, right? Like where is the money going? And because accumulation is a sign that like whales get in first and then they dump later, right? So I want to know, are they accumulating or distributing? And all signs at the moment, as the dude post was talking about, is accumulation signals are just klaxons are flaring everywhere, right? The ETH exchange reserves are going way down. Whale wallets are accumulating. The thing's ranging sideways, but ETF inflows are happening. When the ETF outflows are there, they're less than Bitcoin. When the ETF flows are in, they seem to be bigger than Bitcoin. Whale, we see huge BTC whales that are swapping entire positions. I mean, like significant positions, like billions of dollars into ETH from BTC. And yet the BTC ratio is kind of sideways, right? Like it may be a little down recently, right? The price is like it's like maybe down from 4,700 to 4,400 or something, right? So when you see massive signs of accumulation and the price isn't responding, you're just waiting for that next cliff up. You're going to get a step function as it snaps to higher at some point, which is basically what we saw happening from like 3,000 to 4,400 was this huge step function adjustment. So we're waiting for the next one of those as the market kind of coils a spring, as volatility starts to die down, as you get to the end of those triangles, right? It's all just showing that, like, okay, what can we use to predict what the direction is when we snap out of that range, right? That wedge. And all signs I see are looking good. Yeah,
looking good. It'll be fun to see what happens over the next couple of years. I mean, we're watching. I'm friends with so many OG people. They're just like, God, I can't wait for the price to get above, X amount so I can get out of this now, and they're just beat down. It's like, God, there's been a paradigm shift. We just joined like legacy boring land, which is awesome to me because it's recognized as this asset class that's being desired by these huge institutions. Like they're not just sitting on it for speculation. They're going to be building on it, and you're going to be part of the product, So might as well have a piece of the, hate to use the pun, pie.
Yeah, but that's all like adoption chain usage stuff.
Sure.
Like the price is a matter of token flows.
Yeah.
Do companies have to buy ETH in droves in order to build a payments rail on it? No. Right? No, they don't. But what we can see is there is rising speculative demand for ETH, the asset.
Yep.
And as you said, we just have clearly there's some old people that have been worn down and are just looking to exit the first opportunity, and you just have to have a turnover of the asset to have the next leg up. You have to burn through those reserves. Unfortunately, it looks like those reserves are at least in the 2+ million range, right?
Yep.
There's like 2+ million ETH that just is from people that want out at this point,
Yep.
want off Bones Wild Ride. And the DATs have sponged that up. Some of it's been from the EF, some of it's been from whale-to-whale transfers. I know like Andrew Keys put in hundreds of thousands of his own ETH into basically transferred it for shares to his treasury company now. So that looks like he managed to offload a bunch of his own ETH for lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
That type of stuff, right, has happened. But also there's clearly, if it was just that, you wouldn't see the exchange reserves plummeting. We've been falling at like 1.5 to 1.0 million ETH per month. You just can't do that for 4 years. Like, there isn't enough ETH, right, to support that kind of rate. So I don't know when it'll start to when it'll start to plateau the rate at which ETH is falling. But even regardless of the MNAVs collapsing and the lower buy rate of the DATs, we are still seeing exchange reserves dropping and whales accumulating.
Yeah.
And like Bitcoin whales swapping over.
Yep. It's exciting. I'm here for it. I love it. All right. Thank you. User Fiberpunk 2077 keeps us in the loop on agentic payment standards, and the user Rhythm of ETH thinks that Google's agents payments protocol is a big deal. Fiberpunk 2077 for this week is a Deuter number 21. They write, a month ago, the Ethereum Foundation X account posted a thread on agentic payments using crypto via the X402 payment required standard, developed as an open standard by Coinbase. Today, Google released the Agent Payments Protocol, or AP2, open standard for broader agentic payments. But it includes X402 as an extension for crypto payments. Coinbase and the Ethereum Foundation were collaborators for the new standard. And there's a link to cloud.google.com's blog. User Rhythm of ETH replies, I low-key think that Google is spearheading the AP2 agents payment protocol with contributions of the EF and Coinbase is a big deal. There's a decent chance that Google might convince financial institutions to leverage their GCUL L1 chain instead of Ethereum, with the promise of better liquidity and performance down the line. Interesting. Well, I'm wondering how many will fail for the counterparty risk trap and the compatibility issues with other blockchains. GCUL is not EVM. Google is making it difficult to anticipate these problems by pushing public standards like AP2, promising blockchain interoperability with businesses at the app layer. The EF is a contributor to said standards, and I'm left wondering what will happen in this particular front. It does feel like Ethereum has challenges arising in many fronts, with things like corporate L1s competing for TradFi attention and fractious L2s competing for retail user attention. Oh boy, those are good points. Logar, do you have anything? Or ETH Wave, do you have anything to reply on that? And what is agentic? Maybe let's break it down for our listeners.
Yeah, so AP2 can do a bunch of fascinating things, but the interesting part about it that I am surprised by is it's being spearheaded by Google. But if you ask what does AP2 do and what is an agent, you basically, whether you're on-chain or not, you can tell an agent with a signed message what your intention is. I want to create a shopping trip to go to DevCon in Thailand. Here's the dates. Here's my budget. And then your agent, presumably an AI, right, is going to negotiate with other agents on the other side to do things like negotiate the flight and the car and the hotel and everything required for you to travel. Your agent presumably understands your preferences. So it's finding the right trade-off of things within that budget. The other agents are negotiating from their supply. And if you do this without AP2, then basically you have situations where you can have your hotel booked but not your flight. And then the flight prices change, you end up a little over budget and whatnot, because it's not atomic, right? And you're dealing with different signed agreement, different partners. With AP2, you can get everything signed, and then under a single atomic transaction, do all the reservations at the same moment, right? And you can, so there's one signed message is your intention is stated.
Yep.
Then there's a bunch of negotiations that'll happen presumably from your AI. And then a final signature is basically the transaction of money, the actual atomic execution of all the signed or all the negotiated contracts from your agent. So it's for agent to agent coordination over transactions and a final payment layer, right? Signaled by a user intent. Now, Google can support this off-chain. There's an X402 standard, which is basically an old HTTP code that no one used that basically says like payment required, right? And the reply on that is how much payment is required. So if you want to access a resource online, you can ask for payment using the old HTTP standard. This is kind of an equivalent, but it's coming from the other side saying, rather than you saying how much payment you want, I'm saying how much I'm willing to spend and what I want, right? And then your agent will go and negotiate all the contracts, maybe with something like X402 down the line, right? But it's a great sign that Google is getting interested in agentic solutions, and there is a bright promise for agentic solutions on the Ethereum chain, if not least of which, because all authorization Web 2 systems generally uses identity systems that require, like Google's going to say who you are, right?
Right.
My agent has no legal standing. It can't have a bank account. It can't sign a legal transaction. To the degree that it signs something, it's using my credential, my JWT, which is fraud, right? So there's not a real legal path to have an agent interact with the TradFi bank account systems, because it's going to have a JWT from a user impersonated identity, and that is bad, right? So if you want to have even just a more legally compliant system, giving the agent an address means that it can now do transactions in a legal way without impersonating you, right? And as well as the composability of things on chain makes a lot of the disparate system negotiation that something like AP2 might do much, much easier, right? We have standard payment rails, for example. We have standard carding systems, right? So I think that there is a bright future for AI on chain. I know this is part of the ETH Digital Oil report. If you want to go and see a page or two on that topic, it gives you a nice condensed view of why that's the case. And this is all talking about like personal agent stuff. This isn't even just talking about
business to business stuff.
Business to business automation type stuff, skill automation, basically taking
automated
worker skill,
invoices,
put it in a box. Well, I was thinking more like you have an occupation and we can automate that occupation. And now how do you, as a business, great, you just reduce costs. As a worker, your skills just got automated by your business and you lost your job, right?
Yeah.
So you can use DAI systems to create these models so that your business actually owns the model, and businesses will do that. And that's one of the pathways for growth for DAI as a sector. But it's scary as a worker. You'd much rather that the union owns the model of that skill. And then they are responsible for keeping that skill up, that skilled model up to date.
Right.
And because they have ownership of it, they are, yes, our workers are getting replaced, but we're securing a perpetual revenue right on the underlying skill set. And because we own the model, we can just deny your corporation access to the model, and that's effectively a union strike.
So what do you think?
Right,
what do you think of Google's do no wrong? In this space, based off of what Cyberpunk 2077? I mean, they felt a bit hopeful about it, and Rhythm of ETH is a bit more skeptical.
There's no harm in AP2, right? Okay. Setting a standard is totally harmless. That is a do no harm type of play. But Google Gemini's really, OpenAI, Meta with Grok, XAI, they're all have the same sort of goal, which is to acquire the skill and aptitude of all informatics in the world and put it under their agent systems, that you become addicted as companies on that skill automation, whether it's programming, whether it's writing, whether it's graphic design, whether it's medicine, right? The goal is to take all the human skill in the world and put it in a box that they own and then monetize it.
That's
and
a real problem.
Trillions. and displace trillions of dollars of jobs.
Yeah.
And we already see the impact of that on job markets today.
Yeah.
So if you look at what are the most unemployed degrees, recent college graduates, amongst them are computer scientists and computer programmer, computer engineer. That was unthinkable 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, all signs
It seems like we could
towards
never
that.
get enough, right? It seems like we could never get enough programmers. Software was eating the world, right? We were asking for outlandish salaries. They do your laundry for you. They love you so much, right? It was a fierce fight for talent.
Oh, Jesus.
And now we can't even employ junior engineers because the AIs do what they do, but better and cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? At the level that they perform, a good AI can already do that for development in most languages. So you see that in unemployment numbers in the US right now. You'll see that in job creation numbers. Job creation numbers have been abysmal. Like, it's just been getting worse and worse. And
yeah,
unemployment numbers are going up, and we haven't even really gotten the impact of like Waymo and automated trucking, which will
automated
come for
trucking
more, right?
and driving is going to be the most catastrophic.
Waymo's just hitting major cities in rollouts right now, right, for automated taxis. Automated trucking, it's already in routes going north and south and across California, but it'll go interstate pretty soon. It's just there's more political resistance than there is technology hurdle at the moment.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a big hit on the job market continue. Like, I think it's bad, but this is how you can see the equity markets continue to grow up, to go up and up and to the right, while the job numbers go down. And the job numbers going down, that created rate cuts, which creates more fuel for equities to go up even further,
which doesn't necessarily
create more demand for jobs, though. Like, okay, the reason I couldn't get jobs because I couldn't get enough capital in order to hire them, couldn't finance it correctly at a company, sure. But in a day and age where there isn't demand for the workers because the jobs are being filled by AI and automation, those cuts are only going to cause stock buybacks, not investments in workers, right?
Right.
So the economic playbook the Fed is acting on is going to lead to more and more rate cuts as you basically see a sharp K-shaped recovery where jobs go down and the equities go up, right? Which normally those things are very correlated, but not in an agentic age, potentially, right?
This
so
is
at a macro
different.
level, this is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar impact that we're going to watch play out in real time.
Yeah, the displacement. I don't know. I mean, I know we could do a whole hour on this.
We could. We won't. But
We won't. But
I hear people are hungry. They want lunch.
Yeah. Well, and thanks for clarifying the agentic stuff as it relates to Ethereum, and Google's internal chain versus EVM stuff. Let's just hope they stay decentralized for the sake of all that's good and decent. All right. User Major Pickle 01 laughs at the Solana community's flip-flopping, and user Numerous Ruin 4947 explains Solana's relatively pointless staking mechanism. Let's see, Major Pickle 01 for this week is a Deuter number 6, and Numerous Ruin is a Deuter number 15. All right, Major Pickle writes, it's very funny seeing Solana peeps flip-flop constantly on narratives. First, fees are too high. Then Solana is better because it generated more fees. Now I've seen someone post Solana has more staked market cap with ETH. Then totally post this. And then it's a X link. And it says WW3 economic security has been achieved internally. Sol just flipped ETH and staking market cap. Oh, God. Here we go. Bro, your entire community spent years saying economic security is a meme, and ETH has wasted capital. Enjoy a 63% stake rate at 8% inflation, LMAO. User Numerous Ruin replies, apparently nothing. It's risk-free staking. According to Vivek Ramanu from Vivek Ventures, reminder that this Alt L1 has no slashing. So staking is just theater to justify their inflation. ETH solves for economic incentives with real consequences. Others solve for getting their staking ETF approved quickly to mint more tokens to subsidize their data center validators. Man, that's a good clapback. I like that. Let's get the old EV Mavericks. Let's retweet Vivek Raman on that. Why not? Well said.
Just to quickly add to that one as well, I don't think Solana has a staking queue like Ethereum does. So like, how nation state sort of security level is that if stuff can be unstaked super quickly? Yeah, it's just not comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and just Cyrus Unessi. Oh boy, I don't know if I can find him. Actually, I think I just retweeted him on the Mavericks Twitter handle. He had a nice clapback too. Let's see, I got to go to the profile. I got to find this here. It is, yeah, Cyrus Unessi. I think it's Cyrus. Says, look, to be fair, I'm not even an ETH maxi at this point. I would love to run a Solana validator, if only it didn't cost $90,000 per year just for voting, not even considering hardware and bandwidth costs. The Solana Foundation wallets and delegated stakes were public, right?
Just consider the inflation on it. There's something like 60% of Sol is staked, right?
Yeah.
And the rate, the staking APR you make on that's like 8%. So imagine how inflationary that is, right?
Yeah, that's bad.
That's the cost of this, right? You have to find buyers of all of that, but okay, totally. Economic security.
And finally, for this week, for our final Doot of the week, our number one on the leaderboard, Harag gives us a full rundown on the upcoming Fusaka hard fork. I'm excited about this. In today's ACD, All Core Devs, you know, if they just called it All Core Devs Call, they could call it the ACDC. That would make it more fun. Anyway, during the call, the Fusaka upgrade timeline was discussed and some definitive dates have been laid down. On Monday, there will be a code freeze for clients. Next Thursday, the 25th, client versions will be released with testnet upgrade times in the code. The testnet upgrade times are the following: Haleshki on October 1st, Sepolia on October 14th, and Hootie on October 28th. Any of the upgrades will be on pause if an issue is encountered in one of the previous testnet upgrades. It looks like ETH Wave took off. ETH Wave from Growthepie, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. The upgrade itself will not increase the number of blobs. These are now special upgrades, BPO forks, which is blob parameter only forks, which automatically come 1 week. So BPO 1 and 2 weeks, BPO 2, after each network upgrade has upgraded to Fusaka. Currently, there is a target of 6 blobs at a maximum of 9 blobs per block. Let's see, BPO 1 will increase to 10 of 15 as target versus max, and BPO 2, which is 14 to 21, target versus max. Further increases are not yet scheduled and will be done once the network and clients have settled down, children, and optimized for the now different workload and bandwidths. Okay. Theoretically, Fusaka should allow for a target of 48 blobs per block. Plenty of room for rollups to grow. The mainnet upgrade has not been explicitly discussed, but according to their own agreed upon upgrade timing, mainnet should come end of November, beginning of December. It's going to be a white Christmas. In short, we most probably get the Fusaka upgrade this year, and this will bring a 2.3 times increase in blob space within a few weeks after the upgrade, as well as a minimum price paid for these blobs. And Harag leaves us with a final update. There is now a more detailed document with the proposed upgrade epochs and times. The document also has a tentative mainnet upgrade date, but this has not been agreed upon yet and should only be taken as a suggestion for discussion after the last testnet upgrades. Thank you so much to Harag. All right, gentlemen and lady, That's it for this week's live stream. Thanks so much for subbing and smashing the bells out there on X, Twitch, YouTube, or LinkedIn, where my mom hangs out. Stick around after the live stream because we continue the party in the hotel lobby on Discord for a bonus hour of popcorn. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube. Hi, Mom. On behalf of our Ethereum and the EV Mavericks DAO, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City. Booyah.